Welcome back to Room 442. Joining me now is Peter Galindo of the Northern Football Podcast. Time to talk some Canada and Canada going to the World Cup. John Herdman, Peter, he named his 26-man squad. What really stood out for you from that list of 26?
For sure, Liam Fraser's inclusion. And when we heard that Daniil Henry was a doubt to make the squad, the first thought in my mind was, well, surely he's going to call up Raheem Edwards to shore up some of the left back depth, because right now, Sam Adekubi is the only out-and-out left back in the squad. Now, we know Alphonso Davies can play there. Richie Larea has done it for Canada in the past as well. But when it came to him naming Liam Fraser in the end, it does make sense once you think about it, because when you look at some of the fitness concerns for Canada, they're mostly in the midfield, specifically Jonathan Osorio, Mark-Anthony Kaye, even guys like Atiba Hutchinson, and I suppose even David Wotherspoon, because he's still working his way back to playing 90 minutes every single week after his ACL tear last year. So it makes sense to add the eighth midfielder, just given that there are a few potential concerns at this point. They could still be solved leading into that Japan friendly as well as the World Cup itself. But for right now, that is definitely still a concern. So it makes complete sense why Fraser in the end did get the call up.
Just on Atiba Hutchinson. So Herdman said he's definitely in the depth chart when it comes to center back. And obviously he's not at 100%. He's only played 70 minutes in the last cup match for Turkey. How concerning is that?
For me, I think we're going to find out the answer in that Japan game, because I imagine he's going to start. Don't think he'll go the full 90 minutes, but he'll certainly get 60 to 70, let's say, similar to what he got in the cup match for Besiktas. And he looked very good. Now, albeit that was a third division side. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, of course. But in possession, he still looked very fluid. He was spraying passes across the pitch just like he does whenever he's in rhythm. And I think when he comes up against Japan, that's going to be the perfect test just to see how he reacts to an opponent that presses aggressively, plays very quickly, and are not going to give him a lot of time on the ball. If he passes that test, then I have no concerns come World Cup time. If he doesn't, then that's probably a different conversation we're going to be having.
Okay, let's talk about that Japan match, which goes down tomorrow, I believe, on Wednesday. What are you expecting to learn from that match if you're John Herdman?
Outside of Atiba's fitness, I think you're going to want to see how that defense handles themselves under pressure, building from the back, because Bahrain was giving them problems. And if Bahrain is causing issues, albeit without the full complement of players, what's a team like Japan going to do to them? We saw that they frazzled the US when they played them in a friendly a couple of months ago. And I'm sure Canada's going to get the same sort of treatment here. So will Alistair Johnston, will Kamal Miller, will Stephen Vittoria, especially, because he's the one who kind of struggles a bit under pressure when he is on the ball. How are they going to react to those situations? Can Atiba help them? Can Stefan back a bit and help them in that situation? That's going to be one area for sure. The other one is going to be, will Canada be ruthless in front of goal? Because even though you could make the argument from the Uruguay game that, all right, Uruguay took a 2-0 lead, they let Canada sort of have possession knowing that there wasn't much of a threat. If Jonathan David or Kyle Larin put one of their clear-cut chances away and make it 2-1, it's a completely different match. And maybe they even come back and draw that game. So that's going to be one area that I am going to be curious to see how Canada adapts to that game. If they can produce similar chances, are they going to have that killer instinct in front of goal to get them results against these top tier sides?
Does Japan's style, does it replicate any of the teams in Group F?
Probably Croatia's, in terms of how quickly they play, in terms of the depth they have in the midfield. There were some really quality players who missed out on Japan's squad, like Reo Hatate for Celtic, who is an everyday starter for a Champions League club. He couldn't crack their squad in the end, just because they are 2 or 3 deep in whether it's the number 6 position, the number 8 position, or the number 10 position. So they're very well covered there. I would say that would be the proper test in terms of, Croatia and Japan sort of being the, I guess, comparables here.
Yeah, and that's interesting because a lot of people seem to think maybe Croatia is the team that Canada can potentially steal a point from. So, I mean, seeing that on Wednesday is going to be very interesting. Let's get to your best 11. Based on current form, who gets into Peter Galindo's starting 11?
Based on form, and I don't think it's going to differ too much from what they throw out there against Belgium, I think you're going to go Milan Borjan in goal, and then we'll say that Canada's playing in possession here. So a back three of Alistair Johnston, Stephen Vittoria, followed by Kamal Miller. I am going to go Tajon Buchanan on the right, and then a midfield trio of Stefan Eustáquio. I'm going to go Samuel Piette here, just because Atiba hasn't been playing. And honestly, right now, Ismail Kone probably makes up the rest of that trio. And then on the left, we got Sam Adekubi, of course. And then up front, you've got Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies. So obviously, Davies, as we know, is hurt, but he should be good to go for that Belgium game. That is who I believe right now, based on current form, is the best 11. One or two of those guys probably will change for that Belgian game. I'm looking at probably Junior Hoylett coming in for an Ismail Kone, just because Herdman likes to lean on experience in these big games. But certainly right now, Kone deserves a shout for being in the best 11.
When it comes to Belgium, I mean, we can expect them probably to dominate most of the possession. But is there a world where tactically they change that up and give the ball back to Canada?
I think so, at least at times, because I think everybody's going to be aware, understandably so, that Canada's threat is in transition because of their speed out wide, specifically through Davies, through Buchanan, Adekubi, and you can really rattle off a bunch of names in that position of the pitch. But that is why I think a lot of these teams at times are going to cede the initiative, dare Canada to break them down, which at times they have struggled to do. Although I think slowly but surely, certainly in that Uruguay game, they're starting to figure out how to break those lines. It's just about finishing the chances. So if that does happen, that'll be a massive test for Canada, not just in terms of being able to break it down, but then also how are they going to react in defensive transition? Because Uruguay, as we saw in those 20 minutes in the middle of the first half, really torched them in that situation. All the more reason why I think they should go with a trio to kind of protect against that.
Yeah, and obviously Belgium carry a bit more pace going forward than Uruguay. Okay, so let's get it here. Your realistic expectations for Canada at this World Cup. Please say they're going to win the World Cup.
I wish I could, but I think a realistic expectation, and I think that this isn't out of the realm of possibility here, is to almost replicate what Iran did in 2018 in that Spain-Portugal group, and that they could take a point off the big boys, get a win in that quote-unquote winnable game against Morocco, and then probably narrowly miss out on the knockout stage. I personally believe that of the two giants in the group, Belgium might be the most susceptible here because they have a slow defense. They're still leaning on the likes of Jan Vertonghen, Toby Alderweireld at center back. We know the pace that Canada does possess. The midfield seems to have a couple of question marks. Yuri Tielemans and Axel Witsel might be the go-to pairing there, but because Witzel's playing a lot at center back for Atletico Madrid, his instinct, at least when he's playing for Belgium these days, is to drop a little too deep, which means that the midfield gets stretched. So there might be opportunities there for them to exploit. I say they get a point there, lose to Croatia, and then either draw or beat Morocco to finish third in the group and really give a massive test all three teams.
Yeah, 4 points should be enough for Canada to get through that group. I hope so. I hope so, Peter. And you're going to be down there. I wish you all the best. Congratulations on covering a World Cup. I know that's such a huge moment. And thank you so much for doing this.
Appreciate it, Albert. Anytime.
All right, take care. Okay, coming up on 442, we wrap up today's show with some predictions for the Golden Boot.